Over the country today in a helicopter, as I've had the good fortune to do, you'll notice something remarkable. All of the trees are planted in straight line. Johnny Kim hand-planted each one of those trees. They were rebuilt that refused to accept devastation as destiny.
요즘 세계 무대에서 대한민국과 미국의 무역과 기술 협력 관계가 아주 뜨겁게 주목받고 있습니다. 전쟁 직후 아무것도 없던 가난한 나라에서 우리 힘으로 당당하게 일어선 대한민국이 이제는 세계 시장에서 결코 무시할 수 없는 독보적인 파워를 가진 주역으로 자리매김했기 때문인데요. 전 세계 첨단 기술 제조의 중심을 지키고 있는 우리 대한민국의 놀라운 위상과 글로벌 동맹들이 대한민국에 손을 내밀 수밖에 없는 생생한 현장을 지금 만나보시죠.
So technically, the Korean War has never ended. When the guns fell silent, South Korea was one of the poorest countries on earth. The landscape was stripped bare, forests were destroyed, infrastructure shattered, industry non-existent. If you fly over the country today in a helicopter, as I've had the good fortune to do, you'll notice something remarkable. All of the trees are planted in straight lines. Johnny Kim hand-planted each one of those trees. They were rebuilt. The country was rebuilt tree by a nation that refused to accept devastation as destiny. South Korea has no meaningful natural resources. Its landmass is small, relatively the same size as the state of Indiana. Yet today, with a population of over 51 million people, it stands as one of the world's most dynamic economies. Just 73 years after the war, South Korea has become a global leader in shipbuilding, autos, electric vehicle batteries, semiconductors, consumer electronics, smartphones, displays, home appliances. It's also at the forefront of AI, 5G, advanced manufacturing, and hydrogen technology. And beyond industry, it's a cultural powerhouse. K-pop, K-drama, K-food, K-beauty shape global trends from Los Angeles to London. Its democracy, however, is young. Only since 1987 has South Korea been governed through a full democratic elections. In historical terms, that's just a single generation. And yet, in December 2024, that young democracy faced its most serious test in decades.
전쟁이 끝나고 사방이 잣더미가 되었던 황폐한 땅에서 우리 한국인들은 포기하지 않고 산으로 간 나무를 심으며 나라를 다시 세우기 시작했습니다. 그렇게 한 그루씩 정성껏 심은 나무들처럼 반도체와 배터리, 그리고 배를 만드는 조선 분야까지 한 단계씩 스스로 쌓아 올려 이제는 전 세계가 우러러보는 첨단 제조 강국이 되었는데요. 이제는 공장 기술뿐만 아니라 문화 전반에서 전 세계의 유행을 주도하며 대한민국의 자랑스러운 위상을 드높이고 있는 상황입니다.
The partnership between the United States and South Korea technology, however, is robust and multifaceted. Here are some notable examples. In semiconductors, first of all, I want to say thanks to Samsung because they're investing hundreds of billions of dollars in the U.S., bringing their latest and greatest technology here and creating tens of thousands of well-paying 21st century jobs for Americans. Thank you very much, Scott. I know you did it all yourself. Semiconductors, U.S. companies like Intel and Qualcomm collaborate with South Korean firms like Samsung, like SK Hynix in the semiconductor sector. This partnership enhances innovation and production capabilities in semiconductor chips that power various devices. We collaborate on 5G technologies. Both countries are actively working together to develop and implement 5G networks. Companies like Verizon and AT&T have partnered with South Korean players like LG and Samsung to advance 5G infrastructure. AI. The U.S. and South Korea have joint ventures focusing on AI research and development. Initiatives include academic collaborations and investments in AI startups by U.S. firms in South Korea. We're also working together in cybersecurity. There are partnerships between agencies such as the U.S. Department of Homeland Security and South Korea's Ministry of Science and ICT, aimed at enhancing cybersecurity measures and combating cyber threats. We're also working together in space exploration. NASA has collaborated with South Korea's Korea Aerospace Research Institute, or KARI, on satellite technology and space exploration efforts. Renewable energy. U.S. companies are working with South Korea in renewable energy sectors focus on advancements in solar and wind technologies, including joint research projects, and also on automotive technology. U.S. automakers like General Motors work with South Korean companies to develop advanced automotive technologies, including electric vehicles and autonomous driving systems. These partnerships are indicative of the strong technological bonds between our two countries, fostering innovations and mutual growth.
첨단 미래 산업의 정점에는 바로 우리 대한민국의 기업들이 우뚝 서 있습니다. 삼성을 비롯한 우리 기업들의 독보적인 기술력이 전 세계 정보통신망과 첨단 인공지능 연구, 심지어 우주개발 영역에 이르기까지 깊숙이 스며들어 있는 것인데요. 미국을 비롯한 강대국들조차 대한민국의 선진 기술력 없이는 다음 단계로 나아갈 수 없을 만큼 우리의 기술 주권이 막강한 영향력을 발휘하고 있는 덕분이죠.
And unfortunately, this is taking a lot of the oxygen out of the room for good things, wonderful things. How much in 2023 and 2024, the largest foreign investor in the United States were South Korean firms. This is before the $350 billion investment pledge. So South Korea is already you're bringing your best technology here, whether it's in shipbuilding, in semiconductors, in autos, and batteries, in solar. That story's not being told because all we're hearing about is a big problem. So both sides need to come together, find a constructive solution, and let's focus on the positives.
대한민국 기업들은 제조업의 기반이 약해진 글로벌 시장에서 자동차, 배터리, 태양광 등 핵심 미래 먹거리를 주도하는 글로벌 리더로 우뚝 섰습니다. 세계 최고 수준의 기술력으로 무장한 우리 기업들이 글로벌 공급망을 온전히 장악하고 있는 셈인데요. 비록 여러 대외적인 환경이 까다로워 보일지라도 미국의 지도자들과 행정부 핵심 인사들 역시 대한민국의 압도적인 제조 실력에 감탄하며 애쓰고 있는 상황입니다.
So from my position, both sides need to do something. And Kupang could also make the chairman, after he made his apology, could then donate money to bring the best U.S. cybersecurity minds together with the best Korean cybersecurity minds, create a forum to help resolve future data leak problems, because this isn't the last. There will be more. One thing that we've seen in Korea after tragedies, for example, the Itaewon Halloween October crush, after that horrible tragedy, Korea did so many things to ensure that would never happen again, and they're sharing that information with other countries. And to me, out of every tragedy should come an opportunity. And I want to see an opportunity where Korea and the U.S. working together on technology, where we have so many common issues, so many common strengths. That should be what we remember.
Joining us today. The technology and trade relationship between the United States and South Korea has become one of the most consequential partnerships in the Indo-Pacific. Anchored not only in alliance politics, but in deeply integrated supply chains, advanced manufacturing ecosystems, and increasingly digital and emerging technologies, Korea's importance as a trade and technology partner can easily be seen across critical sectors such as advanced semiconductors, artificial intelligence, batteries, and more. But this relationship is undergoing rapid and sometimes Tammy and I were also recently in Korea and got back 2 weeks ago. During our time there, we met dozens of key stakeholders from government, the private sector, and think tanks to learn more about how they are thinking about and responding to the current developments in U.S.-Korea trade and technology relations. Tammy will certainly talk much more about this during the panel, but I wanted to highlight that nearly everyone we met with raised the point that the United States is still their top priority in terms of both the security alliance and as South Korea's most important trade and technology partner. Yet at the same time, there was significant and growing concern over uncertainty relating to tariffs and U.S. trade policy more broadly. And there were many discussions about what this would mean for Korea's strategic approach to global trade and technology relations in the longer term if these challenges and uncertainties are not resolved. So while today's discussion will raise some legitimate concerns over Korean digital regulations and competition policy, we also hope for a constructive conversation that can emphasize productive outcomes to resolve these issues and ensure that the United States continues to strengthen our alliance and find mutually beneficial ways to capitalize on our economic and technological complementarity.
The system worked, the Constitution held, the military obeyed civilian authority. For a democracy only 39 years old, this was not fragility, this was resilience. At the same time, South Korea was serving as the host of the 2025 Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation, or APEC, a regional forum of 21 economies representing nearly half of global trade. And hosting APEC is not just a symbolic event. It requires more than 200 meetings over the course of a year, advancing trade liberalization, investment flows, supply chain resilience, and sustainable growth. South Korea managed this entire process successfully for more than half a year without an elected president. That is institutional strength.
대한민국 사람들의 진짜 힘은 갑자기 찾아온 정치적 위기 속에서 더욱 빛났습니다. 예상치 못하게 계엄령이 선포되면서 민주주의가 큰 위기를 맞이할 뻔했지만 헌법 정신을 굳건히 지키며 평화로운 시민의 힘으로 이를 슬기롭게 극복해냈는데요. 심지어 대통령이 자리에 없는 힘든 상황 속에서도 전 세계 무역의 절반을 다루는 아시아태평양 경제협력체 회의를 아무런 문제 없이 성공적으로 이끌어내며 우리 제도의 성숙함을 널리 알리기도 했습니다.
That's the good news, but there's some challenges. One challenge I want to mention is Coupang. Now, to many of the Americans in the room, Coupang is not a company we grew up knowing. But for most South Koreans, they know Coupang intimately. Coupang was born in Korea, but it is now, they've moved the headquarters. It's domiciled in Delaware, headquartered in Seattle, and is on the New York Stock Exchange. Now, Coupang is an online platform company, and really they don't have any competition in Korea. I mean, there are other companies who do it, but Coupang has their algorithms and their logistic special knowledge has made them really the company of choice for most Koreans. My sister used to live in Korea, so when I would visit her at night, at 10 o'clock, I'd look in her refrigerator and there's no cream for my coffee. I can't drink coffee without cream. She would get online with Coupang, and at 6 a.m., there's some fresh cream outside my door. Why can't Amazon do that? Anyway.
한국에서 시작해 세계 무대로 뻗어가는 쿠팡은 편리한 새벽 배송을 앞세워 유통시장을 장악했습니다. 하지만 편리함의 이면에 자리한 여러 논란과 잡음으로 인해 국내 소비자들 사이에서는 시선이 곱지 않고 부정적인 인식도 가득한 상황인데요. 양면적인 평가를 받고 있는 쿠팡이 과연 미국 의원들의 발언 속에서는 어떤 식으로 다루어지고 있는지 다음 발언을 통해 확인해 보시죠.
Live in Korea. He is trying to build a global company. They are now in Taiwan, they're in Japan, and they're moving throughout Asia. So he is trying to take that model and grow it all over the world. And excuse me, so he hasn't gone to the National Assembly. I think that's a mistake. And I say that because when SK had their data leak, their chairman, Chae Tae-won, was summoned to the National Assembly. He went, he did the low bow, he did the Korean apology, and he didn't get all this extra attention. When Samsung created some problem, J.Y. Lee went to and he was summoned. He went to the National Assembly and did the Korean thing. So I think it would be helpful if the chairman would do that. Now again, I'm saying both sides have made some mistakes. But right now, what I encourage both sides is that Korea needs Coupang and Coupang needs Korea. 90% of Coupang's revenue is coming from South Korea. And for South Korea, this is, as far as online platforms, 33 million of your citizens were using it. And a lot of small and medium-sized Korean companies are using it to get to those 51 million companies, or 51 million consumers. You know who else is using it? Over $5 billion of American exporters. if you go to Coupang's office in D.C. on Pennsylvania Avenue, you'll see a bunch of very recognizable American logos. Nike, Heinz Ketchup, I mean, any logo you can think of, they're on that wall. And Coupang is helping all of those American companies sell into Korea through the Coupang app. So every member of Congress practically has a Coupang company, an American company in their district that is selling in Korea. So every member of Congress cares about this issue. And again, as I mentioned, they got a lot of consultants. Some of them are really good. Every member of Congress, the administration, the media, Americans now know who Coupang is. But they know it in terms of, oh, it feels like the Korean government is not treating them fairly. That's what Ambassador Greer has said. That's what J.D. Vance has said. That's what several members of Congress have said. So to both the company and to the country, I'm saying y'all need to start talking and find a constructive solution. You need each other. It's a symbiotic relationship.
하지만 이들이 보여준 아쉬운 행보는 국내의 거센 반감에 기름을 부었습니다. 쿠팡의 최고 경영진이 한국 국회의 정당한 출석 요구를 회피하면서 국민을 존중하지 않는다는 지적과 함께 이미지가 급격히 나빠진 것인데요. 삼성이나 SK 같은 기업 총수들이 직접 나와 소통했던 선례와 대조되며 부정적 인식은 걷잡을 수 없이 커졌습니다. 앞으로 보안 문제나 갈등을 풀기 위해서는 이들이 일방적인 태도를 버리고 책임감 있게 소통에 나서야 할 셈입니다.
Solutions all make sense to me.
You also mentioned members of Congress sort of confuse everything. Every member of Congress has companies in their district who are using Coupang as a way to reach out to Korean consumers. When you go to the Coupang office, they have this beautiful wall of, it looks like maybe hundreds of American logos. All of those companies are using Coupang to reach out to the 51 million Korean consumers. And so you can get any member of Congress to care because they have companies in their district. And again, I mentioned I am one of Coupang's many consultants. I think they've done an extraordinarily good job of making sure everyone in the U.S. now knows who Coupang is and knows Coupang's.
비록 국내에서는 부정적 인식이 팽배하지만 현실적으로 쿠팡은 우리 영세 상인들이 물건을 파는 통로이자 미국의 수출 기업들이 한국 시장에 진입하는 다리 역할을 하고 있습니다. 양국의 수많은 기업과 이권이 얽혀 있는 셈인데요. 이 때문에 미국의 의원들은 국내 이미지와 상관없이 자기 지역구의 이익을 지키기 위해 이 플랫폼에 많은 신경을 쓰고 있는 것이죠.
The reason why we care about these issues, which may seem a little esoteric, is because of the nature, the depth and breadth of the bilateral relationship, which for me goes back to being a young intern for Samsung Electronics while I was doing my undergraduate at Griffith University 20-odd years ago. So I was a Samsung man for a brief period of time. And so to build on Tammy's points, I focused more specifically on the rules around which trade has been conducted between the US and Korea as a part of these NBR projects we've done, which in all of my time working on digital and technology policy issues, I found particularly interesting because it allowed us to dive into the sort of qualitative impact of non-tariff digital barriers in a way that is really hard in many markets and contexts. And so this allowed us to bring these details to life, obviously during a particularly challenging context with bilateral relations. But I think my starting point here is that when we look at US-Korea competition and non-tariff digital barriers in Korea, these are not new issues. Korea was actually the first in terms of US trade partners with digital-related provisions in its trade agreement. But subsequently, since then, there's been sort of a growing number of bilateral irritants in Korea that US firms have felt that they are being unfairly singled and targeted, even though they have chorus and this obviously broader beneficial bilateral.
대한민국과 미국은 자유무역 협정을 맺을 때부터 디지털 분야의 협력을 가장 먼저 약속한 든든한 사이였습니다. 하지만 최근 통상 환경이 빠르게 변하고 새로운 규제들이 생겨나면서 분위기가 조금 무거워졌는데요. 미국 기업들이 한국 시장에서 부당하게 규제를 받아 차별을 느끼고 있다고 호소하면서 양국의 대화가 다소 껄끄러워진 상황입니다.
Regarding the broader kind of trade and trade negotiation outcomes and, in fact, the ongoing negotiations. I want to kind of drill down into the commitments that Korea made in the joint fact sheet, very positive commitments in a lot of ways. In the context of all of this uncertainty, what do you think Korea's options are to keep moving forward with those commitments from a kind of legislative policy perspective, and how do you think they should move forward with that?
That's a great question, Jonathan. So in the November joint text that came out as a result after the Lee-Trump summit in Gyeongju in October 29th, Korea agreed, both countries agreed to not discriminate or have policies that treated U.S. tech companies unfairly. And I think there is a real question and concern in the U.S. administration that Korea is backtracking on that. So I think to me, the obvious thing would be to stop digging the hole, put the shovel down. The National Assembly is talking about a new law on disaster management. And I understand why they want this law. For those of you who don't follow Korea closely, one of their data centers I think it was a cacao data center, had a horrible fire and caused incredible disruption in Korea. So I understand the need for the National Assembly to get involved. But unfortunately, often when we see new pieces of legislation like this, they end up disproportionately impacting large American companies. And often to sort of giving Chinese firms who are growing in Korea kind of a free pass. And that's something that really irritates the Trump administration.
물론 대형 화재 같은 사고를 막기 위해 새로운 법을 만드는 것은 이해할 수 있는 일입니다. 하지만 이 규제들이 자칫 미국 기업들에는 과도한 부담을 주는 반면 정작 더 철저히 단속해야 할 중국의 거대 정보통신 기업들은 규제를 우회하여 한국 시장을 파고들게 만드는 부작용이 우려되고 있는데요. 우리 시장을 지키면서도 동맹국들과의 신뢰를 깨지 않는 지혜롭고 공평한 해법이 절실한 상황입니다.
It's going to sort of react to them poorly. And so it's about using the provisions we've seen in many other agreements, some of them for a long time, to actually address some of these long-standing concerns and basically, in essence, give US firms a fair deal in Korea, which they thus far don't feel they have in relation to mapping data, in relation to cloud procurement for the Korean government, as it relates to financial payment data and services, and then obviously as it relates to competition policy. Whereas if they feel that there's been both a change in tenor and treatment, that they can give Korean policymakers the benefit of the doubt whenever the new legislative proposals start coming up. And what it also lays the basis for is like broader cooperation on cybersecurity, AI, semiconductors, whatever it may be. Whereas if firms from both countries feel that there's obviously a clear benefit for them. And in some ways, talking to a senior Korean official, and I was putting it in this broader context, and you could just see that they did an amazing job of like providing the Korean government's perspectives and interests. But it's like you could see that the challenges they were dealing with, and like you're asking me to go back and talk to these domestic agencies about what they should be doing to address some of these concerns, and they clearly don't feel they have the political authority to do that. And so there needs to be a reset of some sort to focus on pragmatic solutions to deal with some of these longer standing things so that the two sides can focus on the issues now that are much more sort of relevant in terms of AI and cybersecurity and semiconductors in China.
결국 다가오는 미래 기술 경쟁에서 대한민국이 인공지능이나 정보 보안, 반도체 시장을 확실하게 주도하기 위해서는 불합리한 제도적 걸림돌을 슬기롭게 걷어내야 합니다. 이미 다른 국가들이 적용한 선진적인 무역 규정들을 보완하여 실리적인 해법을 이끌어내야 하는데요. 불필요한 마찰을 줄이고 협상의 주도권을 잡음으로써 우리 기술의 영향력을 세계 무대에 더 당당하게 펼쳐나가야 하기 때문입니다.
Go to Nigel's paper, and under the U.S.-Mexico agreement, there are several good examples that could be added to the Chorus FTA that would be a win-win for both. So I would encourage everybody to read Nigel's report, and to some of my Korean friends, maybe read it twice. I don't mean that disrespectfully, I really don't.
The solutions are there, they exist in other agreements. What we proposed was not new, and again goes at more at addressing the underlying sort of administrative and institutional concerns as opposed to like Korean law.
지금 세계 무대에서 벌어지는 여러 무역 협상과 갈등은 역설적으로 대한민국이 가진 기술력이 글로벌 리더들에게 얼마나 절실하고 막강한 힘인지를 명확하게 증명하고 있습니다. 독보적인 기술 장벽을 바탕으로 세계 무대에서 당당하게 동맹을 주도하고 공동 번영의 질서를 세워나가고 있는 우리 한국, 앞으로도 더욱 힘차게 나아갔으면 좋겠습니다. 오늘 영상은 여기까지입니다. 시청해주셔서 감사합니다.